I'm talking to the guy behind you. You all set? Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order this evening. I have 7 o'clock on Tuesday, May 16, and I'd like to invite everyone in the room to please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you can see that Select Board Member Mackey is not here. He won't be with us tonight due to a conflict that he has. So the four of us present will proceed with our meeting. We have a number of scheduled items tonight, and the first one involves what's known as an ascertainment hearing relative to one of the two cable television licenses that we have here in the town. This one pertains to Comcast Cable. So let me just ask, before I read the public hearing notice, is Attorney August present? No. Okay. And is a representative from Comcast present? Is that Kerry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I ask people in the room to please bear with me. This is a formal hearing, so I am required to read this hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board, as Cable Television Licensing Authority under Mass General Law 166A, Section 1, will conduct a public ascertainment hearing on Tuesday, May 16, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board's meeting room at the Town Hall, 1009 Main Street, here in Tewksbury, Mass, as part of the town's Comcast Cable Television license renewal process. The Comcast license is due to expire on September 19, 2025, and the Federal Cable Act 47 U.S.C. 546 requires a public proceeding to ascertain the community's cable-related needs and interests as part of the license renewal process. Public comment is invited regarding the town and public's cable license renewal needs and interests. And if you are looking for further information, you can get copies of renewal records that are available for public inspection through the town manager. And we ask you to contact the town manager's office. If and when Comcast files a license renewal application and/or proposed license renewal, a copy of that shall also be available for public inspection at the office of the town clerk by order of the Select Board as licensing issuing authority. So we welcome input tonight. We will accept comments on interest related to cable-related subject matter, customer service, the needs that we have regarding our own local studio and telemedia department, community programming, public, educational, and governmental access. So folks, when we get to the public input section, we'll invite any comments, and we will take those into mind. Bear in mind that the license, as I said, runs through September of 2025, so we're still a little ways off from the actual renewal. And this is part of that process. I do also want to note for the record that we did receive some communications in advance of this evening's hearing. And for the minutes of the meeting, I want to recognize an April 10, 2023 letter from Jason Stamp, who is the Director of STEM and IT Services at Tewksbury Public Schools, writing in support of continued collaboration and access with the telemedia department. I want to acknowledge a letter, I believe through email, it's undated, but it's signed by Lorna Gary, editor of the Tewksbury Carnation, again in support of the and appreciation of the Tewksbury Telemedia Department, in support of the cable license renewal. I want to also acknowledge correspondence dated May 15, 2023, from Robert Hayes, the Community Services Librarian and Head of Technical Services at the Tewksbury Public Library. Also expressing support for the Tewksbury Telemedia Department, and reiterating a lot of the good work that's done in collaboration with the library. I want to acknowledge an undated communication from Reverend Dylan O'Shell from Tewksbury, also supporting the telemedia department here in town. And last but not least, a letter dated May 11, 2023, from the President and Vice President of the Tewksbury Historical Society Board of Directors, again expressing support for and continuation of that support for Tewksbury Telemedia Department. So a lot of folks have taken time to communicate to us in advance, and we will make sure that those letters become part of the record and part of this public hearing process. So let me ask if my colleagues have any comments or concerns that they want to register for the record. And then we will ask any members of the public if they want to offer any commentary. Let me start on my left, Mr. Kratman.
No, I mean, I think the residents have spoken. They've all requested that we continue having the telecommunications. This is something that we provide services to the public. There's been many applications that have been put out through the seniors, the students, the town meetings, just having everything that the residents that, especially during COVID, when people were unable to get information and we were able to do meetings online and people knew how business was still going and how, you know, the great information that was put out by the town, they jumped forward. They let everybody know what our public health departments were doing. And I think it's invaluable to have that kind of asset for our community. And I applaud, you know, Ryan and his whole team and of everybody of what they've done to make this what it is now. And I hope to see it continue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kratman. Mr. Holland, can I go to my far right?
I can reiterate what Mr. Mr. Kratman said, but I'd also like to see, and these guys do a great job, don't get me wrong, to see it expanded a little bit where we could have a television program like conversation with the town manager, conversation with the DPW director. So the town's informed of what these departments do. And make it a public, have questions written in, so kind of like a television interview, yeah?
Okay,
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, sir. Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Dorrington, I think that your department touches all corners of our community beautifully, and you're well-respected, your entire team, Jason, are very well-respected by all members of our community, as Mr. Kratman said. We see it in our schools, we see it in our churches, we see it in a variety of community groups, our senior center, and a number of groups that I've been involved with as well. And there's always a smile on your face, there's always we can make this happen attitude, and it's a tremendous service to this community. I've been here for, in various roles in this town for a while, not to date myself, but your predecessor was one person who worked very, very hard to make it all happen, and you have been able to integrate technology, new technology, open government and the community seamlessly. So I know that's very hard to do, and you make it look easy. Your needs are not small in order to stay current with technology. Your budget is very important to this town. We have a revolving account to fund you. And it's very important that we continue to maintain our relationships with the cable companies so that we can continue to fund that effort. Even as people continue to change how they access media in today's world, it is an ever-changing world, we still see a tremendous number of people connecting with cable and cable companies monetizing various different streaming efforts and so forth. So there's a lot on the horizon for your department. And we want to be able to expand, as my colleague said, so that you can hire additional people, train young people, and be able to expand appropriately to what's available to you. It's not easy. I know there's always a call for more meetings to be on TV. And with staffing, that's a challenge. And you and your staff rise to meet that challenge as much as you can. And it's very impressive, the amount of athletics, all the different things that you bring to the community and into our homes every day. So, and as Mr. Kratman said, your efforts during COVID and your colleagues across the state and the country were tremendous. So I thank you personally and your staff, and I hope that you will convey that to them as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll just offer a couple comments. I absolutely unequivocally support what my colleagues have referenced relative to the telemedia department. My comments, I think, just to expand the discussion a little further, will be centered on some other things, but I don't want to confuse people in the context of not being supportive of our local telemedia efforts, because I do think they're very, very important. I do want to acknowledge the presence of Kerry Morris from Comcast, and I view that as a very positive sign that Comcast is committed to Tewksbury and will continue to be a good partner for us. My concerns rest with the never-ending battle of changing technology and improving technology, and the hope and desire that as we begin negotiations on a new contract, that Comcast keeps the needs of the community in mind relative to hardware and software and those improvements that are necessary. We've had a great partnership for quite some time, and I know Comcast and the other provider in town have supported financially the infrastructure that is required to do all the good things that my colleagues have just referenced. And I know Brian knows so well in terms of the actual building out of the ability to do the good work that's done. So to me, financially supporting the commitment and understanding that what we have in place 2 years ago already had to be upgraded, and what we have in place today undoubtedly 2 years, 3 years down the road is going to have to be upgraded yet again. So that's something we need a strong partner and a relationship to help us facilitate that from a cost perspective. So I'd ask our partners at Comcast to keep that in mind. And then undoubtedly, I want to speak for many people who aren't in the room tonight but are impacted, and that's the ratepayers, right? And what I'm asking for on one hand is I want you to potentially give us more money to support infrastructure, but it's borne on the other hand by the subscriber fees. And the fees are, in my mind, they continue to rise, and they're a challenge for many people. So anything that can be done at a macro level to moderate fee increases, addressing the ability for seniors and others who have fixed incomes to access cable at the lowest possible cost, I think is very, very important. Many of us have the discretion to spend more for adding different channels and things of that nature, but the game is getting harder. And I know that all of us are aware that streaming services are abundant these days, but cable is not just the television. It's telephone, it's security, potentially. So there's a lot of adjunct services that stem from cable service itself, and therefore, in my opinion, it still remains a very important component of our community. So I want to be cognizant of the rates that people are paying, I know I always look at my bill and shake my head each month, and it's something that we all wrestle with. But I know there are others who have to make very difficult decisions, and anything we can do relative to our contract and our rates that affect the ability to expand or maintain subscribership, I think is a good thing. So I would encourage Comcast to work with us in that area as well. And I know it's bigger than just Tewksbury, but it's something that has to be kept in mind. So those are my comments this evening. Let me take a moment here and invite anyone here in the hall that might have comments on this particular topic. If you do, I'd invite you to come over here to my left to the podium. And please feel free to offer your name and address. And then if you can briefly state your point of concern on this particular matter, we'll take those for the record. Does anybody have any comments? Sir?
Name is Bruce Schick, live at 30 Lucille Drive.
Thank you and welcome.
I've worked with Tewksbury Telemedia on a couple of occasions as chair of the reuse committee. We use them to document the condition of the two schools that we're looking at. In my mind, that's very helpful. It's a way for people who don't want to go into the bowels of the building and don't want to spend the time to walk through or can't make a meeting. We make it available to people in a way that they can consume it if they care to know more. That was put into the record as part of what we presented to the select board, and I think it's a useful record. Do I think anybody looked at it? I'm not sure. But on the other hand, it's there if people want to look at it in the future, say, why did we do this? We have a really good record. And it was not just walking through with cameras, it was a whole dialogue about what was going on in the building, so you could really get a sense of why these buildings had the problem they had. So from that point of view, I think it's a great service, and I think the service is not just the equipment, even though that's important. It's the people who deliver the service and the way they deliver it, and they do a wonderful job. I would hope that would continue. And I'll stop right there.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Paige Impink, 30 Geddes Drive, and I'd like to speak in support of Tewksbury Telemedia as well. My interaction with Tewksbury Telemedia spans a variety of roles and interactions, and I can say as a journalist with the Tewksbury Town Crier, Telemedia has been very supportive of candidate forums and created a way for residents to learn about different public offices that are available and the candidates interested in filling those offices. I'd also like to speak about the accessibility that Tewksbury Telemedia brings to residents who may not be able to get out to different events, including town meeting or sporting events. I have a mother who's a senior citizen, and Tewksbury Telemedia provides a way for her to observe events that she might otherwise not be able to attend in person. Finally, as far as accessibility goes and transparency, having our meetings, all the different meetings available online really provides a measure of accountability for our elected officials and provides, again, transparency for residents so they can see firsthand what's going on in their town. If they have any questions. So 100% support for continuation of this valuable service.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Ms. Morris. My name is Lorna Gary, 34 Garfield Ave.
Thank you.
There's a letter in the record, re the Carnation. We're 4, sometimes 3.5 people. Only one a professional journalist, none of us working full-time. And thanks to the great accessibility of meetings from Tewksbury Telemedia, we've been able to really take off. We had 220,000 page views last year, close to 89,000, and a vast majority of that content is only possible because of Brian and his team. I'd also like to speak on behalf of Chrissy Palomino, who couldn't be here tonight. She's the vice chair of the 100 People Tewksbury Group. So Brian and his team, the group launched right after COVID. And to Mr. Kratman's point about accessibility, many members were just not comfortable coming out to crowds to hear the presentations from the nonprofits. So Brian and his team came out, they televised the presentations of the 3 nonprofits who were presenting to the group, so that those who are home could watch it. They could text or call in their choice. And they really helped a nascent group get off the ground and be able to serve the community. And to date, that group has collected and donated through them more than $100,000 to Greater Lowell and Tewksbury charities, most recently $10,000 to the food pantry. And that's really, I feel like that group would not have gotten off the ground as it did without the help from Tewksbury Telemedia. And even now, people do watch from home and will call in and say, oh, you know, they made a great presentation. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I don't usually do this, but because of the importance within the town budget and concerns in terms of delivery of information and services, I want to ask if the town manager has any thoughts or comments he wants to add to the equation.
No, I think everything was covered by the board as well as the residents. The hearing tonight is not just about the telemedia department, it's about cable service in general. And I think, Mr. Chairman, you hit a lot of the high points on cost of the service and affordability of the service. And going into the negotiations, you know, we know the priorities are making sure the ratepayers aren't impacted by decisions that we make or agreements that we make, and we want to make sure that the telemedia department is funded properly.
Terrific. Thank you. Okay, I am going to ask my colleagues to offer a motion to close the ascertainment hearing
So
at this
moved.
time. Thank you, Ms. Wellman. Is there a
I'll second
second?
it.
Mr. Holland is the second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the chair will vote in the affirmative as well. So that's a 4-0 vote for our recording secretary, who will probably use our telemedia services to create the minutes. So the process will unfold, and as I indicated, it is going to be a lengthy process. We're going through September of 2025. The town has undergone this same negotiation process numerous times. I anticipate that our capable counsel, Attorney August, who is highly experienced in these matters, will work closely with the town manager to represent Tewksbury's interest. Ultimately, the product of that negotiation will be brought back to this board, and we will have an opportunity to approve it. I also expect and know that along the way, there will be periodic touch points, presumably in executive session for this board, to get an update on the status of any negotiations, because it is a contractual matter. But we continue to welcome any further comments in written form as this progresses. And I just want to, again, set expectations that nothing's going to happen tomorrow. This is going to be a little bit of a process, but we'll continue to have open dialogue with Comcast and their representatives. And I again want to thank Ms. Morris for being present to hear what people had to say. That's an excellent starting point and a good sign of their commitment to Tewksbury. So we appreciate that. So we'll move on with our next agenda item at this point. So that brings us to a presentation from the town's audit firm on the fiscal year 2022 audit. So welcome welcome to you both. Welcome back, I guess I should say, because we had this conversation just about a year ago, if I remember right.
Did.
Thank
It's good to see you both again.
Thank you for having us.
And if you don't mind, just so we can capture identification for the record, if you can give us your name again for the record. I know the firm, but it would be helpful.
Absolutely. I am Romina Mamelli. I am the on-site partner with Powers and Sullivan. With me is Jim Powers.
Yeah.
He is the engagement quality control review partner with Powers and Sullivan. And we want to thank the town and the board for allowing us to come in and present these financial statements tonight. We also want to thank Richard, the finance team, the school department, because without their cooperation, this would not be possible. So in front of you, there are 3 reports, or at some point you should have had 3 reports. One's going to look a little bit different than it has in the past. So you have an annual comprehensive financial report, which is your new financial statements. You have a schedule of federal awards, and you have a management letter. So I'd like to go over this annual comprehensive financial report first. Just to give you an update, so what we do, our objective is to express an audit opinion. The town received a unmodified audit opinion, which is the best audit opinion you can get. It's a clean audit opinion. We perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Our responsibility is to plan and perform the audit to determine that these financial statements are free from material misstatements and that they're fairly presented with general accepted accounting principles. Management is responsible for including and presenting these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So when we perform this audit, we come out in 2 stages. Our preliminary stage is when we can do all of our testing that we don't need those year-end balances for. So we're actually out here this week doing some of that testing. So that includes transaction testing, it includes budget work, it includes starting your single audit testing, looking at your long-term debt, recording your lease receivables, all of the stuff that we don't need that June 30th balance for. Then we come back at the end of July, which is very, very early for most municipalities, to be able to have us come in 3 weeks after you close your books is just something to be said about the finance team, the school department, and so everyone that's involved in it. So during that time, that's when we perform our analytical reviews. We look at those year-end balances. We test additional information that we didn't have as of this week. So we look at your single audit, what those expenditures were. Are there any big expenditures that have gone through, any large invoices that we need to consider testing? We make sure that if there's any updates in compliance supplement, that we're testing all of that. And then from there, we issue the financial statements. So your annual comprehensive financial report, and I know that your town accountant does have these physical copies in case you need them. So they encompass your regular basic financial statements that you are used to seeing, except now they've got a little more stuff in them. So you have an introductory section that includes a letter of transmittal that is written by management, and that includes information such as profile of the town, economic factors that's affecting budgetary controls, and it gives the reader kind of a background on Tewksbury. Beyond that, you'll have an org chart. Eventually, you'll have the certificate that goes along with submitting this annual comprehensive financial report. And beyond that, you get to your regular financial statements. A 3-page audit opinion, which is the only thing that we own. The rest of this belongs to management. And you get to your management discussion and analysis, same as it's been in the past, your MD&A, which we like to call it. That's kind of an overview of what happened with these financials and with the town finances over the course of the year. It explains why things increase, why things decrease, gives you a snapshot of all the different balances that are in the report, what happened with your budget, what happened with your debt, where were your large capital asset changes, and that type of information. Then you get to your regular financial statements, full accrual, modified accrual, your notes to your financial statements, your budget to actual, those trend schedules we see for pension and OPEB. And then beyond that, there's just one little extra piece for your combining schedules. So in your balance sheet, you have a non-major governmental column. What these combining schedules do is they break those out. So you'll have your Community Preservation Act, town grants, school grants, town gifts, your permanent funds, your town capital projects. And you'll see them in that same presentation that you see your general fund and in this instance this year, your elementary construction capital project, which is shown as a major fund. Then you have a statistical section which includes 10 years of trends. So this, you could look at where your revenues were for the past 10 years, your expenditures by function. It has information, some operating indicators, capital indicators, debt for your past 10 years, assessed valuations from what are on your tax recap. And it's really useful information. And we suggest you just kind of take a flip through it and see what's there. It really tells a good story of where the town has come these past 10 years. But for the most part, you still have those basic financial statements encompassed within here. So a couple things that I want to highlight. So your budget, so obviously big thing, your budget to actual. Overall, there was a $2.7 million increase. Of that revenue, you received $3.8 million higher than you budgeted. Your expenditures, you turned back $3.5 million. Of your final budget this year, or in FY22, you used $4.7 million worth of free cash. Of that amount, $3.9 million you used to transfer to your stabilization fund, and $600,000 you used for snow and ice. In your general fund itself, your fund balance is up. It's $36.2 million. You have 3 categories of your general fund balance. Your unassigned fund balance was $25.9 million. This includes your stabilization funds, of which $9.6 million was your regular stabilization and $725,000 for your special education reserve fund. Along with that, you have articles of $7.1 million and encumbrances of $3.2 million, and that totals your $36.2 million that you have for your general fund. Your only major other fund is your elementary school construction. So that had a year-end balance of $5.9 million. So the town had funded that project back in FY19 with some bond proceeds and premiums that totaled about $60 million. So over the course of time, as the school has been constructed, that balance has come down. And obviously now the school is good. You did receive $8.7 million from MSBA reimbursements in that fund. And then your non-major funds, like I said, they're now a little bit more detail inside of those combining statements, so you can get a sense of what makes up those numbers. For your enterprise funds, all of your balances increased for your net position with the exception of water. Water had a $592,000 decrease. That is because of OPEB, which we'll talk about in a minute, but your OPEB liability did go up, and that affected your water. Your sewer and your cable also have OPEB and pension liabilities within them, but their change was only about $12,000, so there was no big difference in there. And
the town manager can correct me, but I also think relative to water, the rates were held flat, if I remember right. So
That's correct.
is going to have an impact as well.
yeah. And your sewer, the reason that you have $3.4 million surplus in your sewer is
Right.
because the general fund subsidizes for the
Right.
debt.
Right.
And the other thing with the enterprise funds, when you're looking at that, those are accounted for in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles under the full accrual basis of accounting.
Okay.
Whereas your general fund, as Romina had talked about, having the 35 million, 25 of regular unrestricted fund balance, and $10 million is on a different basis of accounting. From a budgetary standpoint, your funds looked even better. And as she talked about the other post-employment benefit liability, that's that unfunded long-term liability similar to your pension.
Yeah.
And that's what negatively affects some of these results. And so you kind of have to weed through the gap compared to budget. And, but this, all in all, both sides are an excellent financial statement condition from that standpoint.
So then you have your statement of net position. So like Jim said, so this is your full accrual. This is where you're recording these giant liabilities that you have, and so doesn't everybody else in Massachusetts have. So you actually had for governmental activities, you had a $14.8 million increase. And what contributed to that was the $8.7 million that you got from the MSBA. You had received $912,000 from Chapter 90 as a reimbursement for those highway projects. Your stabilization funds were up $2.3 million. Your general fund was up $2.7 million. And offsets to that were OPEB caused a decrease of $5.2 million, and your net pension liability caused a decrease of $1 million. So Your net pension liability, as you know, you are required to pay your pension appropriation every year. And you're part of Middlesex County. So that went from $104 million last year to $99 million this year. Your valuation was a new valuation this year as of 1/1/22, and the county, as of FY22, we'll see what happens this year, but it was 61.1% funded. The state requires that these counties be fully funded by 2040. Your net OPEB liability had a pretty large increase. So that went from $77.2 million last year to just over $110 million this year. So that also had a new valuation. So one of the big contributing factors to that increase was your discount rate went from 7.5% down to 6.25%. So just that change caused a $15 million increase in your liability. The 6.25% rate is a more stable rate that we're seeing across the board. 7.5 was pretty high. The town is pretty consistent with how much you're putting into your OPEB trust fund, which has $7.8 million as of the end of '22, with the just under $900,000. That saw a little bit of a decrease because the investment income was down, again, across the board. So that's 6.6% funded. It's a good thing. Rating agencies like to see that you're funding, that you have some type of funding schedule in place, but unfortunately, that doesn't help your total OPEB liability. That's just a piece of what that comes to. You also had a $12.1 million in decreases based on actuarial factors that changed. So mortality tables changed. There's changes in like age-adjusted updates, which we're not actuaries. They could probably explain to you exactly what that means and what those are. But they do factor it in. The town does receive actuarial evaluation from them that does describe why things changed. The other big thing that you have is debt, $143.9 million. There was no issuance of debt in FY22. Governmental debt totaled $85.8 million. Enterprise debt was $58.1 million. And your percentage of governmental debt service to total appropriation was $7.1 million, just a little bit less than last year, and very manageable. Debt agencies or rating agencies like to see what that percentage is, and anywhere between 5 and 8 or 10%, you're in a good place. So that takes care of the annual comprehensive financial report. You also have a report on federal awards. So the town expended $7.3 million. The federal government requires that if you expend more than $750,000 in federal grant expenditures, you are required to have this report on federal awards. Of the $7.3 million, we tested $1.5 million for the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, also known as ARPA. So maybe that's a little more popular. And $1.1 million in the Education Stabilization Fund, also known as the ESSER grants. No findings, no questioned costs. We found that all the compliance requirements were met, and that also contained 3 clean audit opinions.
Great.
And then the last report is just the management letter, and it's a comment that's been in there for a couple of years. We know that it's going to be fixed in FY23. Develop a written disaster recovery policy. Are there any questions?
That's becoming more and more important, as we know. We see
Yeah.
for neighboring communities, for example.
Yeah, it's not that there's
Yeah.
not something in place, it's just not in writing,
Yeah.
right? So you do have safeguards in place, there's just nothing in specific writing in a policy that just says, here's what we do.
Yeah. We've talked about it before, and it's definitely on the to-do list. I see heads nodding, so we'll get to it as soon as we can. So,
But beyond the policy, it's the actions that make
Yeah.
the difference,
No
because
doubt.
obviously, as you stated, it happens more and more we see nowadays,
Sadly so.
and can really be extremely disruptive to your operations.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you one general question. We've worked hard at this table with the town manager during his tenure to formalize and adopt various financial policies. You referenced some of them indirectly, $600,000 for snow and ice, an annual contribution toward the OPEB obligation. My question is, do you see any in other communities that might be worthy of our consideration? Is there any gap or holes in our policies that you might recommend we think about that we don't presently address?
I think from our viewpoint, the numbers speak volumes realistically about the level of your stabilization fund. If you took a look, as Romina said in the back, there's a lot of, in the annual comprehensive financial report, there's 10-year trend analysis. And that tells, oh my God, you've done great to have this type of reserves and still maintain, reasonable rates as you go through, limited expenses as you go through and provide the services that are constantly demanding. The only thing that, you could do a little bit differently that some places do, but you're still way ahead of the curve, it's really just addressing the OPEB, the other post-employment pension liability. But that's a liability, as Romina said earlier, you're required for pension with Middlesex Retirement to fund that by 2040 by law. Actuary, Middlesex has done a very good job. I think they achieved almost 20% rate of return in fiscal year 21 that was effective for that year. But they're running into the same problems, everything else, because the pensions are increasing, et cetera. So there's more and more burdens on you. It's finding that balance of how do I fund my long-term, but I can't really, sacrifice my short-term. So those liabilities, you're still in better shape than most. 61% funded at Middlesex for most is better than most of the regional retirement systems. And the OPEB, what do you, about 7.7, I think, 7.8 was
$7.8 million balance, 6.6% funded.
6.6% funded. It's finding alternative ways to maybe find a little bit. What I've seen some places do, and again, it depends on how you budget it, is an interesting one. At town meeting, they voted that the health insurance expense appropriation, anything that's left over at the end of the year, they're going to transfer that over to the OPEB trust fund. But if there's nothing left at the end of the year, including any encumbrances where things go, it doesn't go. It helps a little bit, but it really is going to make with a big liability like that and 6% funded, it's going to take a monumental effort. And realistically, you probably won't really be able to address that until Middlesex is paid off.
Right.
And then your past service costs and expense goes away, and then you just
Redirect.
It's the same liability for the same people for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And then shift that appropriation over there. So it may take you to 2060 to get there, but you're not in that boat alone. And but other than that, I think the numbers just tell the story.
Yeah, we appreciate that, and I think everyone at this table certainly is cognizant of all the good work and the progress that's been made, from what once was a very difficult situation to now, to hear you describe it as very positive.
And the other place, just from an operational standpoint, Renee being able to bring our team in late July, August, that gives you answers and get Richard answers about how to manage that. But he can also look at things throughout the year to say, where are we in budget to actual, where are we in appropriations? And he can bring up any concerns he has with the select board and address what could be an issue early on. And that was even more important back during the pandemic when all kinds of revenues were dropping. So that operational piece is something to be proud of as you go through and give you the ability to manage what you are measuring all the time.
Better being proactive than reactive.
Yes. So that's.
Mr. Montori, I know you want to add
Yeah, just to follow up on the policies themselves, there are some edits that I'm going to bring forward before the end of the fiscal year to the current financial policy. For example, it still mentions that we'll use X amount of dollars in free cash to transfer to the OPEB trust fund but that changed since we put the appropriation into the budget. So I'll bring forward an updated financial policy. I'll run it by Romina and Jim to look at before we do that, to get any edits they may have. But then in addition to the financial policy and talking to the actuary who did the OPEB valuation for us, he sent a draft OPEB policy that the board should adopt, separate from the financial policy on how we're currently addressing funding OPEB and how we plan to do it in the future, which goes what Jim mentioned about utilizing the retirement funding that we have currently when we've paid off our full liability. So I'll bring that forward between now and June 30th because I want to have it ready if we do any borrowing or when we do any borrowing after July 1st.
Excellent.
And with the annual comprehensive financial report, the word comprehensive tells you the story because that turned a 55-page document into a 125-page document.
Right.
Yeah.
So it addresses all of these issues. But you could address something that has room for things like talking about your financial policies. That could be a section of your introductory section where you say, in the current year, the town has updated its financial policies to hit these key milestones and these key elements, et cetera, to tell the reader what you're trying to do from a long-term perspective. So somebody reading this will say, oh, that makes sense. It tells me in the back what you're doing, as opposed to just reading that 55-page document that just tells you what happened.
Absolutely.
Not why,
Sure.
but just kind of what happened
Right.
Excellent.
in numbers.
All right, let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Anyone on my right? Ms. Wellman?
Just really briefly, I thank you, Mr. Johnson asked most of the questions that I had. I've been in service in this town since we had just $500,000 in stabilization prior to Mr. Montori's joining us. And so it's been a journey, and to come from a place of, really on the edge to a lot of financial security, and to be able to say those things in front of town meeting is important. And your work to validate that for the town is really valuable. My chief concern, and you're not bond counsel, but, and you're not a bonding agency, but our goals are to eventually, if we can, get to a AAA bond rating. And so what are the pieces that what are the levers you would pull if you could, that would make us more likely to achieve that rating? Because we're close.
You're doing pretty much all you
I know.
need to do here.
Pay off
And,
OPEB.
if I had a vote, I'd give you AAA, okay? But
Right.
a lot of it has to do with your demographics, where you're located, the economy and what's driving things, and your commercial base compared to your residential base, all of those things. There's a lot of factors in
That's right.
affect where you are in the area. And, the general economy, the state's economy, as we go through, the state's has been doing pretty well recently. And so I don't know exactly, I'd have to go back, and I haven't read the last Standard & Poor's Moody's report on you in probably about a year. But, it's convincing them with your financial advisors to see what's preventing you from getting there. Now, that's only going to hurt you a little bit more when you're going out to bond. From the standpoint, anything, you can't, they can't change your bond rates, what you've already borrowed for. So if you're building something big and you're going to have a $100 million bond issue, as you go through, the better the rating, the better rate you usually get. But it's not always true. Sometimes it doesn't save you a lot. And in a crazy market right now, of what you're going to get for a long-term bond rate, considering where the treasuries are and everything else, what used to be able to get at, 2.5% on a 20-year, bond, you're up in the fives right now. Several communities, and one near you, had got fantastic rates on pension obligation bonds, ridiculously low, that made it make sense. You couldn't take it, obviously, you're part of Middlesex, but all of a sudden, in 3 months right after they took it, it was unaffordable for all the other communities that didn't act as quickly as two of our clients that did. So
Yeah.
it's, it's difficult, and they may, your financial advisors may tell you to just take a bunch of short terms for a while, depending on what you have
Sure.
as you go through.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Holland? No? Mr. Kratman?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, as Selectman Wallman mentioned that, our bond rating, we do have a number of projects that we have coming up in the future that we're looking to do, and I'm trying to get that rating and get the best rate that we have. And I know Tom manager's done a wonderful job when, rates have gone down to jump on it. And he's refinanced things, saved the town millions of dollars
Right.
over by doing that, and just having that ability. But, to follow up, you mentioned like residential rates, commercial rates, and different things like that. Is it beneficial to have more of a mixed use or something in a community? Like, how do they come up with that number? Is it because we have so much residential, or is it, we have too much? Like, what is we're always trying to figure out, like, we'll get the report and we'll shake our heads like, why didn't we get it?
Yeah.
And so it's, and when we're planning and we're, coming up with policies at town meeting about, developing, changing our zoning bylaws and everything else that we're doing, all that plays a factor in it. About, how we're zoning our town, what we're looking for, trying to bring in infrastructure, trying to bring in a better tax rate, trying to lower taxes for the residents and,
But
so
I think realistically, I don't think you want to change the nature of your town,
Yeah.
Just to save, 5, 10 basis points on a note, et cetera, as you go through. So I wouldn't recommend doing anything drastic to change zoning laws that all of a sudden made, the attractive part of Tewksbury is you're close to Boston, everything else, but you're a bedroom community with some good open space, with some, little farmland, all kinds of other things, and right on top of 93, 495. There's a lot of things attractive to.
Sure.
And again, you've got enough commercial to do a lot of things. It's a subjective ruling that they go through these particular processes as they go through. And things that have changed recently is some of the larger communities, say if you, like if you took a look at Wellesley, when you talk about OPEB, years ago, they decided to pass an override to fund their OPEB, okay? And so they said, all right, we're gonna do $3 million a year for 10, 12 years. I'm gonna put that money in, we're going to attack this. So that is very attractive to them, but obviously it costs their taxpayers more money as they go through. But if I just opened up to what Jane was saying earlier. Back in 2013, on page 112 of the ACPA, you had $9.5 million worth of general fund balance. 9.5, 11.5, 10.9, 12, 15.9, 17, 20, 26, 31, and 36.
Exactly.
So anybody looking at that and not saying this place isn't being managed with the intent of getting to a triple A rating, I'd have a hard time. But that's not all that goes on with it. So
We've experienced that, yeah.
I can't
numerous
tell you an exact thing. I'll go back and read the last Moody's, the Standard & Poor's report to see everything in there. But talking to your financial advisors, they usually have a one-to-one with them
Yeah.
to find out if they, what puts you over the top.
I think in the end, if my recollection is correct, it's largely about what you've already touched on, which is OPEB obligation.
Yeah.
So, and we're not unlike many other communities, so we continue to try to chip away and do everything we can, and we're trying to tie down all the other areas that we have control of, so there's no other excuses, if you will, so.
So there's.
Yep. So in short, I think I hear you both saying the town has done an exceptional job of managing its affairs and continues to do so. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe.
Thank you. And I want to appreciate your good work and your flexibility and the timing, because we can make the doors open for you, but you also have to have the bandwidth to meet that timeline as well. So we appreciate that, and I know the town manager and his finance team do a yeoman's job of making all that happen. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for having us.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you for presenting that to us. All right.
Thank you, Richard.
Mr. Montori, do we need to vote to accept that report? I just want to, no, okay, fine. Thank you. No worries.
If you needed to, you're months late, so
Thank you. That's what I thought.
take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to move to our 720 item, which is a common victual license change. There's new ownership at Hunan Walk. Is there someone here from that organization? Come on forward, sir. Have a seat. So welcome, and if you could introduce yourself and who the gentleman sitting with you, that'd be great.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Attorney Russell Chen, 400 Hancock Street, Quincy, Massachusetts. I'm here representing HL Hunan Walk, Inc., and Mr. Ren Chu He is next to me. He is the president.
Excellent, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. We propose we're seeking a CV license
Yeah.
from the board approval. Mr. Ho is interested in purchasing this business. It's a relatively small Chinese restaurant, mostly takeout, if not all takeout. There are, I think, less than 10 seats
Yeah.
in the space. And the current owner is sitting in the situation behind us.
Okay.
So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
No, maybe you could just describe your client's experience in the restaurant industry?
I believe that this is Mr. He's third restaurant, if I'm not mistaken. He definitely has told me about two. He may have more experience, and there's no liquor license involved here, so
Right.
there's not going to be any issue with that. But he does have experience running restaurants, owning restaurants.
Excellent.
And actually, restaurants of a similar size and nature,
Is that
which would
right?
be small takeout.
Okay. It looks like, if I read the facts right here, there's 4 employees. Do I have that right?
He is anticipating 4
Yeah.
employees,
Okay,
depending on how business
Yeah.
goes.
terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, do my colleagues have any questions for council?
I have one question.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you very much for your application. It looks good. Were there any renovations that you're planning to the inside of the restaurant?
Right, to my knowledge, he's not planning any changes at all. The menu is staying the same, the phone number is staying the same. It's pretty much just a change in ownership.
Straightforward. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Terrific. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick one. I know you have a change of ownership, but employees, any of the employees staying on, or are you bringing in a whole new staff?
Do you know the answer to, are you hiring new people, or are you going to keep the same? He's indicated to me he's going to keep the same employees.
I go there and eat, so it's fabulous. So that's why I want to make sure it stays good.
Hopefully it'll be consistent.
So, no, it's been a great place, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have one question.
Sure.
The license looks good to me, but the Board of Health doesn't get involved in the transfer of a license?
This is a new license. It's not a
It's a new
transfer.
license.
Yeah, because there's a new owner.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But no, not on this, in this particular process. Okay. All right, so I don't hear any other questions, so may I ask for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the new owners of with the transfer of the common victualler license as presented.
Second.
Okay, so just for clarity's sake, your motion, Mr. Kratman, is to approve the common victual license itself, right?
Yep,
Not a
new
transfer.
application, yes.
Okay. And that was seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll make that unanimous as well. So good luck in that role, sir, and welcome to Tewksbury.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Thank you.
All right, we have another license request. This is for Bliss Point Meadery. Is anyone here from Bliss Point? Yeah, come on up, sir. And if you wouldn't mind, you probably have the routine down now because you've been here
Sure,
a
I've been
little while.
observing. I'm Jeff Venuti, owner of Bliss Point Meadery. We're out of Bedford, Mass. I'm no stranger to Tewksbury. I grew up here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah? Okay.
We participated in the Tewksbury Farmers Market last year, selling our mead to the community here. Just at the end of the season, we were very well received. So we're hoping to get a alcohol permit for the full season this year.
Terrific. And I recall you being before us last year as well, or someone from your organization. So as I see this application, you're looking to do Thursdays from June 15 to September 28, 4 to 7 p.m.
That's right.
Terrific. And for the purposes of public information, the farmer's market will be at Livingston Street, and this license would be for the parking lot behind the Livingston Street Park Recreation Center. This is a special license because it's a meadery. Is there any questions on the part of my colleagues, or are there any questions?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. Is this just to sell the bottles of wine, or will it be serving the wine?
Sampling, but not pouring drinks.
How's that work exactly?
We use small 1 ounce cups, so people get a ½ ounce sample. Then we retrieve the cups from them. It's a compostable cup, so they get returned to the earth.
Come up there.
So would that come under a special license?
This, because of the nature of this.
So you're allowed to do
meadery,
that,
it's a
serve
special license.
and sell it by the bottle?
Massachusetts farmer winery licenses allow bottle sales and sampling at farmers markets.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else?
I had the same exact, to the town manager. It's, I was looking through this license and I was asking the same question. On this, it says sales at the farmer market. Should we have anything that mentions, having alcohol at an event? Is that something that we should give to the, maybe to the farmer's market or something, to have like a license to? I know when we had events, I know it's just small samples, but when we did like the Harvest Fest and other things, the police department reviewed and make sure that only adults were near something or whatever it was. I'm just thinking there's a lot of kids down there. Granted, it's small samples, but kids will be kids. So, is there something that, if it's sales, that's one thing, but if it's something that people are actually consuming on a thing, even though it may be samples, is there something that, I know we've done different licenses for that.
So we have sampled in the past at the Tewksbury Farmers Markets. Our product is under our control the
Right.
entire time, and we do card people. And again, the samples are ½ ounce or less
Yeah.
pouring in small
Yeah.
cups.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's ultimately your responsibility, so,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right. Any further questions? My recollection is that this, I think you referenced it, but I think this went over very well last year, and I don't believe there were any issues that came to our attention. So I want to commend you for that, and just point that out to my colleagues as well.
I just, like I said, for clarity of the record of what we're actually issuing, that's all I'm looking for. This says for sales, and if I'm reading through it, I'm guessing that it's like selling bottles of wine or things like that, which you are doing.
That's the primary.
That's what the primary thing is. I just want to make it clear, the police department reviews this and other departments look at, what we're doing. And so I just want to make sure that maybe for next year for clarity, put something on there that there's small samples or whatever it may be.
I believe on the MDR application, there is a checkbox
Yep.
for samples. If that did not get checked, I apologize.
That's what, I did not read that inside there. That's why I was wondering.
Yep. Okay.
I think on the Massachusetts ABC.
You have it checked.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Wellman?
Oh, they
I'd
do
like to-
have something, okay.
I'd like to offer a motion to approve the special alcohol beverages license for Bliss Point Meadery for Thursdays from June 15th to September 28th, the hours of 4 PM to 7 PM for the purposes of offering samples and wine sales at the farmer's market.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wellman. For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair will vote aye as well, so that would make that a unanimous 4-0 vote, and we thank you and look forward to seeing you at the farmer's market.
All right, thank you, Select Board.
Thank you, sir, for your
Thank you.
patience tonight. I'm going to move to a very similar request from Aranap Sellers, so I'm guessing that we have someone from Aranap here. And this is a very similar request, if I have it right, but would you do me a favor and just introduce yourself for the record?
Sure. My name is Bridget Bolduc. I'm the summer manager for Aranap Sellers out of Westford, Mass.
Awesome, thank you and welcome. Is there any difference between what we just heard and what you're attempting to do?
The only difference is we were there the entire season last year.
There you go.
So,
Okay.
and we've had no issues. Every single one of our workers is ServSafe certified, so we are trained in how to check IDs properly and pouring
Great.
samples of the
Yeah.
appropriate size.
Terrific. So we're hopefully pleased to have you back. Do my colleagues have any questions for
I just
For this
have one.
applicant?
The appropriate size is the same size as,
Correct.
Okay.
The legal limit is 5 1-ounce samples, and none of ours ever make it that large.
okay.
There you go. Okay, any other questions? If not, may I ask for a motion to approve? And again, this is Thursdays, June 15 to September 28, 4 to 7 p.m.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the license request. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll make that unanimous as 4-0. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on June 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, our next item is a National Grid poll petition, and it's actually a series of petitions that pertain to Bridle Path, Shivas Circle, and Fisk Street. And I want to ask my colleagues to indulge me for a second, because these were all set up as 3 separate hearings, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. I want to ask my colleagues if they will make a motion to waive the reading of the hearing notices, and then I'm going to ask for a second motion, but may I ask?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion to waive the notice of hearings.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Mr. Kratman, the motion made by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well. So that would be a 4-0 vote to waive the reading. And then what I'd like to do, if my colleagues are in agreement, is these are all related to the same topic and issue. So rather than treat them individually, unless there's a need to separate them out, if we could ask a representative from National Grid to speak to all 3, and then if there's any particular questions, we'll address it. I will point out that there is one additional unrelated request from National Grid. It's an underground petition that I'll set aside, and we'll address that separately. But these 3 for Fisk Street, Bridle Path, and Shivas Circle are all kind of connected. And my colleagues will take note that there is a May 8, 2023 correspondence from the Director of Public Works that gives us some detail and speaks to the department's support of the request that's before us on all 3 this evening. Okay? So, sir, could I ask you just to introduce yourself for the record?
My name is Alec Birdsong, and I'm here to represent National Grid, and my
Thank you.
address is 1101 Turnpike Street.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything that you can maybe just describe? I know we have the detail about the Public Works, and this is related to the installation of sidewalks and the need to move some poles, but is there anything you want to add to that?
No, as you stated, this is about installing sidewalks on Fisk Street.
Right.
And so we're relocating many poles along Fisk Street and kind of redesigning the distribution network
Yeah.
there. And we are also going to be installing a handhole close to one of the poles there.
Right, I saw that. And as you put new poles in, the existing poles, I assume, will be removed, is that correct?
They will be removed.
Okay.
I show that they're joint-owned poles, so Verizon will handle the removals for those.
Okay,
I know sometimes there can be an issue, but that's where.
yeah. So in the end, we're trading out 1 for 1?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, all right. Do my colleagues have questions on this?
I have one question.
Mr. Holland?
Are the poles metal, or are they going to be the standard utility pole?
I understand that there will be the standard wooden poles, not metal ones. Did you have a request for metal poles?
No,
They're
no, I
usually
was
much
just
more.
curious to find out if it was going to be the metal poles that they put on Main Street, or, when they put up new poles, usually they put up a metal one.
Let me see if I can.
I mean, just to prevent, if you drive up North Street, there's 5 poles that are leaning and another pole's holding it up.
No, I don't show that these are metal poles.
Okay, it was just a question I wanted to ask and clarify.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kratman, you have a
Yeah,
question?
this is all, every time a pole comes in for new sidewalks, I always have the same question. There's accessibility to the sidewalks. This is something that every time National Grid comes in, I always mention, if you're relocating poles, if you're doing something that's out there, it has to go to the back of the sidewalk so that there isn't any poles. We're not installing sidewalks in this community with a pole in the middle of it. I'm just done with that. So this is going to be complete access. There's no pole that's going to be relocated that's partially in the sidewalk, or I think it's going to be in the back so that we have the full length of the sidewalks along this area.
Yeah, that should be the case. I don't design for Tewksbury specifically,
Yep.
but we always leave the space, in the sidewalk. These are going to be new sidewalks, my understanding is. So if you want them put at the back of the sidewalk, I can note that and let the designer know. Yeah.
Every time a representative from National Grid is coming in, that's probably the reason he sent you in. He's sick and tired of listening to me. That I tell him the same thing. And he came into us before. We've had some things put in, and then there's always a reason of, there's something out there, we need a guide wire, we need something in there, we have something. But, when poles are being put in this community, they should be put into the back with the expectance that we are going to put sidewalks in. So we shouldn't even have to relocate them all the time. That's something that when national utility companies coming in, it should be to the very back of where it is where the access is along there. So when we're putting poles along a roadway, there should be something you keep that, 5 feet or whatever it may be, so that, sidewalks are going to be accessible. Well, the town has made a priority of installing sidewalks throughout this community. It's something that the residents have asked us for. We want to have walkability, but I don't want to have a sidewalk where somebody in a wheelchair or something has to go into the street to go around a pole. It's great for residents who are walking, you can walk around it, but I want to make sure we have that 3 or 4 feet where somebody's has a stroller, has a wheelchair or something, can maintain that accessibility, and that we can use those sidewalks. So if you can put a note in there that all the poles shall be located in the back so that we have the full width of the sidewalk, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Well, the other thing is to plow. Aren't we plowing the sidewalks now?
Some, not all, but some.
Not in this area.
So down the future, yep. So I just asked the town manager to coordinate with Mr. Hardeman on that issue, because this was essentially triggered by the town's request to relocate the poles. I assume Mr. Hardeman and his team are on top of that exact topic, but wouldn't hurt to confirm.
I'll do that.
And we'll take it from there, okay? All right, so this is a public hearing, so we're dwindling in the audience here, but I want to ask if anyone has any questions on this topic, and if so, they have a right to come to the podium. Nope? Okay, so let me ask for a motion to close the public hearings.
So moved.
Ms. Wellman.
I noticed that you had a couple of anchors in this project, and I didn't know, I didn't see, but I wanted to just ask if there are any easements that are required from the residents in that area to accommodate those anchors, or are they on public land?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Generally, we try to keep everything in the public way.
Yeah, it's not always possible.
And it's not always possible, and that could be one of the reasons why we might not be able to keep a pole in the back of the sidewalk, because then the anchor ends up in somebody's yard where they may not want it.
Well-
But I don't know if that's the case here.
Okay, yeah, that would be, if that changes, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second, Mr. Kratman's motion.
And did you offer a motion, Mr. Kratman? Thank you. So for our recording secretary, Mr. Kratman offered a motion to approve the 3 poll petitions, Bridle Path, Shivas Circle, and Fifth Street, seconded by Ms. Wellman.
I thought we were closing the public.
That was a motion to close the public
I'm
hearing.
sorry, I apologize. I'm
Yeah.
moving too fast.
Confused.
But I
Okay,
will
so we
make a
have a
second
motion to
motion.
close.
The chair is
That's my bad. We have a motion to close and a second by Ms. Wellman. All
Yes.
those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's 4-0 to close the hearing. Now, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, Mr. Holland is seconding it for the record, and that's just for me to confirm all 3, is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. So all those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will vote in the affirmative as well, so that will be a 4-0 vote on all 3, again, Bridle Path, Shivas Circle, and Fisk Street.
Okay.
Thank you. And I don't know, are you here on the other one?
Commerce Way?
On Commerce Way?
They didn't give me that one. I heard you say that. They
Okay.
didn't give it to me.
All right, so this is a hearing
It's Joey Antilli.
that is on the petition of National Grid to construct a proposed line of underground electric conduits in accord with the document and mapped here too. And again, I want to point out to my colleagues that Director of Public Works, Kevin Hardeman, wrote to us, on May 8, and indicated that they've reviewed the proposal and indicating that the infrastructure is being installed due to a new commercial building at 30 Commerce Way, and the Public Works Department is in support of the request with some conditions. National Grid shall secure a street and sidewalk opening permit from the DPW for any excavation within the town's paved roadway. National Grid shall secure a physical alteration permit from the DPW for the installation of infrastructure within the town's right-of-way, but outside of the paved roadway. And National Grid shall ensure that the proposed installation does not come in conflict with the infrastructure in the project area, including water lines, sewer lines, and stormwater infrastructure. So let me ask if anyone has any questions for this gentleman.
I have none.
Okay. And if not, is there anyone here who has any questions? I don't see anyone rising, so I'm going to ask to close the public hearing. Is there a
So moved.
motion? Is there a second on the close of the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Motion offered by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will vote in the affirmative. That will be unanimous, 4-0. And then I would ask if there are any motions to approve the request subject to the conditions placed by the DPW.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll vote in the affirmative. That makes that 4-0. So we are all set on that. Thank you for your attendance tonight, sir.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
Have a good night.
Okay.
So you know what to talk about.
All right, that brings us to the residents portion of the meeting. Are there any residents who wish to speak tonight? Sir, just come on up.
Good evening. Patrick Nichols, 100 Florence Ave in Tewksbury.
Welcome.
Thank you. So just to introduce myself, my name is Patrick Nichols. I am the president of Bella Luna LLC, which is one of the cannabis applicants for the retail stores. And I first of all, shameless plug, I would like to invite you all to our existing operator that we are partnering with, if you would like to see how we plan to operate our store. But I'll get to my question. There's been a lot of back and forth about this whole thing of first come, first serve. And it still seems like it came up even at the last meeting where the May 11th deadline was set. So, Mr. Chairman, are all the applicants that have applied as of May 15th, May 11th, are they all going to be interviewed before any licenses are distributed?
It appears that that will be the case because we have scheduled hearings on June 12, June 13, and June 20.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that the board won't issue licenses on June 12, or perhaps on June 13, or perhaps up to and including June 20. We
So-
haven't decided that, and we have not had discussion about that process.
So there is a possibility that you'll hear from one applicant and immediately give one of Tewksbury's
I
three
guess
just to that person.
hypothetically, that's a possibility.
Okay.
I can only speak for myself. My intention is to hear them all, but that doesn't mean my colleagues agree with me. So
Right.
I'm not going to guarantee that. We have not discussed it, and we haven't decided how we will approach the decision-making process.
Okay.
At present, our intention is to conduct the hearings and solicit public input after presentations by the, the proponents or proposers. And then the board will figure out how they want to go forward with their approval process.
Okay. Yeah, will that be communicated ahead of time, or I know that you've scheduled dates, but will that process be formalized in the coming weeks, or?
I will probably have a discussion about it at some point, and as an interested party, I'm sure you'll be made
All right.
aware. I can tell you right now, in a short time, we're going to propose, or I'm going to propose to my colleagues that a hearing be held or scheduled, you said Bella Luna, on June 20.
Okay.
So it's on the calendar, presumably.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Welcome.
Hi, Amanda Marino, 60 Polaris Lane. I had two questions, actually. One, I was just curious to know about the recreation center, if we have any word on it, if, I know it wouldn't happen until next year, or if there were any programs for this summer for the kids. I think Alphabet was going to be renewed, and I don't know who's handling that, if it's town or if it's school. But I know as a parent, I haven't seen anything come home yet about any programs for the summer from Alphabet. Should I be addressing that with the school committee?
I'm going to
Okay.
ask the town manager if he
Sure.
can add some color to that.
So Alphabest will be providing the extended day extended day and summer programs again. Hopefully, there'll be some expanded programs within their program. So something should be going out from the schools. That would be something the schools would do. But I have been told that Alphabest has been contracted with again for the next few years. In regards to other programs, the police department has sent out information regarding their junior police academy that they'll be holding in the summer. And the public library will be sending out any programs and events they'll be having.
Yeah, I did see the police program, unfortunately. I think it's fifth grade and up, so we'll wait until he gets to fifth grade. Yeah, I was just curious where school's out in 22 days. We hadn't heard anything for Alphabet yet. My other question is, and I'm not sure if you guys could help me or not, who would I talk to about having a sign put up? Well, maybe a no-through trucking zone sign for my street. We have a problem with 18-wheelers coming down, and we live on a cul-de-sac. And they're looking, I believe, for the Market Basket Distribution Center, because I'm over behind there. And we get at least one a day, and we have 7, 8 little kids. To either get them to change the signs with an arrow, make a bigger sign off of 93, or we asked for a no outlet sign, but we can't technically have it till further down because you can actually get through. But they've actually ruined the brand-new sidewalk that was put in on Shawshene Street. And they're trying to turn around an 18-wheeler in a cul-de-sac. And I've been to Market Basket, and they've told me to go to the Realtor, which I did. He said to check with the town because he thinks it's Andover, maybe it's Tewksbury, talk to the town about a sign. So is it here that I would talk to?
So
or-
there's a little bit of a process, and I know the town manager will probably give you some detail on that, but we have a community officer at the police department, safety officer, who might have some input into that as well. But Mr. Montori?
I'll talk to you after this.
Okay, they just keep saying their GPS routes them through my
Yeah.
street.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, that brings us to new business. We spoke at our last meeting that took place at the Tewksbury Memorial High School about NIMCOG's request following the annual town election and the reorganization of the select board, that we formally take a vote to appoint a board designee to NIMCOG. Ms. Wellman has served for the last year in that capacity and has expressed a desire to continue in that role. And I would just simply ask for a motion to approve that appointment as the board's designee, so we can formally inform NIMCOG of that appointment.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for all those in favor of the motion offered by Mr. Holland to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will be a 4-0 vote. Thank you, Ms. Wellman, for
Thank you, gentlemen.
representing our interests. The next item is, in your packet, you have correspondence from the Tewksbury Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, as well as a poster, and they are requesting approval to host an event on the town common on Friday, June 2nd, 2023, for an event called Pride Lights. It would be 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and there's detail in the correspondence that was provided. If there are any questions, we can entertain that now. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion.
I was hoping the town manager was back for here for this. I have no problem. Maybe Jane can answer this question.
can.
Is it the gazebo that's just going to be decorated?
Correct.
Okay,
That's
because I was notified by our veterans agent that
Yes.
there's an issue. Are you aware of it?
Because they're doing some flags, not at the cemetery, but
Yes.
on the common.
Each
Yeah, I
year
heard
at
about
Memorial Day,
Right.
they usually decorate the cemetery,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, the cemetery told them they couldn't do it. So the veterans plan on decorating around the memorials and putting quite a number of flags, from what I understand, around that. And so just want to make sure they're coordinated. I mean, I think both things should be able to
Yep.
use. It's a pretty good-sized common. I just want to make sure it's coordinated so that, somebody's not in somebody else's way.
So to speak to your concern, I found out about that today. We are, and maybe Mr. Montori can speak to it, but we are doing a coordination meeting the night before, and we are coordinating with town staff for all of the events on the common. We were planning on putting a musical act in the gazebo, but because of power requirements and I think the lights will take some power, we're not going to do that. We're going to have all the musical acts, including student acts, on the patio, just out in front of Town Hall, and there's good power supply right there. So we won't have people kind of congregating near the memorials so much. So I just wanted to make sure that there would be no damage done, and I don't anticipate it'll be, that we'll be anywhere over in that area, so just close to the gazebo.
To that point, Mr. Montori, did you ever get an answer from the veterans agent about what and where they plan on putting these flags?
Sure.
Is it around the memorials? or-
So it's around the memorials and around the gazebo, and they will have them out of the common on Wednesday, so
So it'll
there'll be
be,
plenty of time.
there's no
Yeah, so
problem.
it should be-
Okay.
That's great.
All right, so this request is for Friday, June 2. So,
Yep.
okay.
Make a motion to
Thank you.
approve the Pride Lights event for Friday, June 2nd, on the Town Common from 6:30 to 8:30 PM.
Okay, that motion was offered by Ms. Wellman. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. That's a 4-0 vote in the affirmative.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to the town manager. Mr. Montori?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have town council invoice for the
Very
board to
good.
approve.
Yep.
I'd ask the board to approve a town council invoice in the amount of $3,952.50 for the time period of April 1st through April 15th, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A second.
All right, the motion was offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll make that unanimous as well. Do you have anything else, Mr. Montori?
I don't.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to minutes. Mr. Holland?
Yes, we have minutes. April 24th. Has everybody had a chance to review?
Yep. Yes. You offering a motion?
Yeah, I'm offering a motion.
Okay, on one or all?
Just the one.
Okay. April 24, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you for the minutes. Mr. Holland offered the motion, Mr. Kratman seconded. All those in favor of approving April 24, 2023 draft minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that's 4-0.
Okay, on May 1st, I don't know how we want to do this, because Ms. Wellman wasn't there, it was Mr. Mackey, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Kratman showed up late.
Yep, the fact that you're not present at a meeting does not mean you cannot approve them.
Okay.
It's at your discretion. So I'll leave it to my colleagues to decide what they'd like to do, but if you want to offer the motion to approve them,
I'll make the motion to approve.
May 1st,
May 1st.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, so that's a
I will abstain.
3-0 vote with one abstention, and that being Ms. Wellman, for the record. Okay, and last but not least, Mr. Holland?
May 3rd, 2023.
Okay, is there a second on approval of those minutes?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? The chair votes aye. Did I hear 4 unanimous votes in approval? Okay, so we have 4 votes approving May 3. Thank you for that. Okay, before we go to board member reports, I just want to mention one thing that it's really kind of closing out an item. And I'm going to ask the town managers to take action, and then we'll address it at a later meeting. But my board colleagues will recall that we did a performance assessment for the town manager. That involved the instruction to him to budget an annual compensation increase to his base pay of 2.25%. And it was contingent on the budget being passed at town meeting. He put it in the budget. And as we all know, the budget was passed at town meeting. So it is incumbent upon us as the board to ensure that the change that we authorized and approved contingent on town meeting action gets executed upon. So I've asked the town manager to draft and have town council draft an addendum to his current contract with the board to reflect the 2.25% increase. And I just want to make that known to the public. We already spoke to this in a public session a number of months ago when we authorized the placement of it in the budget. But I want to close the loop in a public context of making sure that we make it known that we're asking the town manager to move forward with that, and we're authorizing the adjustment effective July 1st, 2023. So I don't know that we need to take a vote yet. I'd rather wait for the document to be placed in front of us and we'll approve it. But I want to put that on the record so everyone has full transparency, most importantly, the public. Okay? All right. So that brings us to board member reports. Mr. Kratman, let me start with you.
The LRTA, we met, it's always the last Thursday of the month, went over our financials, ridership, and the ridership is increasing slowly but surely. They're putting out a lot of informational things. They've done a lot of upgrades, fresh air intakes and things like that on the buses. They're doing a lot of promotions in the communities, and slowly but surely the ridership is coming back and revenues are coming back, which is great news. As I mentioned before, one of the things that we did is we changed the bus route slightly in our community. So now the bus goes, when it comes leaving Wilmington, it comes back and it's going down Shawshene, going on to East Street, but then it takes a left at Chandler, where it used to continue all the way down East Street, where it really didn't pick anybody up. And now it goes to the Tewksbury Library. One of the things that I'll be working with Kevin Hardeman is to try to find good location to put a new, right now it's a flagging system because of the wintertime. We wanted to continue it, but we want to make sure we have a safe bus stop, especially anybody that's in a handicap that needs to get off there. And then we have a crosswalk or some way for them to get across the roadway to use the library. And then it continues down the rest of 38, especially where we have a couple of new businesses. It goes right down to Pleasant Street. You know, high school kids can use it. It just seems like it's a good answer to some of the, the businesses we have. And since we've done that, we've actually received additional requests to add additional bus services throughout our community that we're reviewing. So we'll see what happens. It really depends on revenue and what we can do, but a simple change has brought up, businesses have contacted the LRTA asking about increasing it to get some employees to their locations in different places, which we'll continue to research. Today I was appointed to the MBTA Advisory Board by the chair. I sat in the first meeting this morning, really going over the budget. I mean, we don't have MBTA facilities in our community, but because we are abutting, Lowell and Wilmington, it affects us, and it's nice to know your tax dollars are going to the MBTA if you're using it or not. So it's nice to sit on that board and find out how they're spending the money, where their money's going, and what kind of improvements they're doing. And hopefully, when we're talking about, extending, bike lanes and other things, if we can get something that extends to an MBTA line, there's funding available for that. So if there's a way that we can work with our right now they're doing bike lanes down 38, and then it goes to our trails and continues on. Maybe sometime in the future, if there's a way to have it continue on into Lowell or someplace into Wilmington to get it to the stations, there will be funding available that we can pull that information to try to extend our bike and trail system. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry. Last thing is, it's not a board round report, but Memorial Day is coming up. We have the Memorial Day service that'll be happening. The ceremony is at 10 a.m. at the cemetery, much in the same way we've done many years. And then the parade is at 11 o'clock. I want to thank Lisa Downey for all her work she's done so far, coordinating this. And the town's been pushing out the information. Very shortly, we'll have a better idea of the lineup and speakers, and we'll have that out shortly this week. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kratman. Ms. Wellman?
Thank you very much. Thank you for reappointing me to NIMCOG. We are beginning a strategic planning process that starts tomorrow, and I'm on that subcommittee. So
Good thing we reappointed.
I appreciate that, yes, I'd like to continue that work, or get that, at least that piece started, so there's a lot going on there. The Elementary School Building Committee, there's been continued conversation about the gym floor, and they've hired a consultant to weigh in on why issues have happened with the gym floor and how to address it and what are remedies. And this is a specialist, I guess he lives locally, actually, but he consults all over the world. So on particularly wooden floors. I don't know if Mr. Montoya has any more insight into that gentleman's work and when he begins.
I know that he was scheduled to walk through yesterday, and we expect a report the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so we should get some more information on what's going on with that in the near future. And I want to wish all the moms out there and all the people who have duties like moms, happy Mother's Day, belatedly. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman. Mr. Holland?
I just have one thing, and I think we already know this, the CPA met on 4/27, just to go over the articles, and all the articles were approved to go to town meeting. That's all I have.
That's it? Okay, sir, thank you. And I have just two items. I'm going to pass this to Ms. Wellman while I address those. If you can take it that way. Thank you. I first off want to commend the town manager, his full team, for executing an exceptional town meeting. I think we witnessed every year continued improvement. The reaction of the community in support of the community is very evident in the way in which town meeting requests are approved. And I know that that is a reflection of a lot of hard work that takes place over many, many months. We just ended town meeting in early May, and we're already starting to think about the next cycle and building up to next May. So it's not something that just happens because we wake up on May 1st or May 3rd to make happen. So I want to commend that effort. I also want to thank residents who took the time to participate in the town meeting process. While we arguably don't have a huge number, we consistently have a strong group of people who are diligent and committed to the town meeting process, and many of them are repeat attendees, and they understand the issues, and they take the time to do their homework, and they speak their mind at town meeting, whether that be by standing up and vocalizing something or letting things move forward without any question or controversy because they're satisfied with what has been presented information-wise. So I want to thank them for helping us to execute what, in my opinion, was an exceptional town meeting process. The second thing I want to talk to, you heard, my colleagues heard a few minutes ago, one of the proponents of a retail cannabis facility ask some questions. And I want to reiterate for purposes of the public and what we're intending to do, and then I need to ask my colleagues for some cooperation or collaboration on one item. So we previously agreed, and I want to reiterate this, that we will hold public hearings on any application that has been put forward before the planning board or the board of, the select board prior to May 11. And we have effectively 9 entities that have met that requirement. We previously agreed as a board that we would conduct public hearings on licenses on June 12, June 13, and we held June 20 as the third potential evening. And we previously decided that we would schedule 2 proponents on June 12, 2 on June 13. And at the time we scheduled those 4, there were a number of other potential applicants pending before the planning board. And we wanted to wait to see until this evening what transpired at the planning board level. So we have further information. And what I'd like to ask my colleagues to consider by consensus is we can conduct, in my opinion, all 9 hearings on those 3 evenings. If we add 1 to the 12th to do a total of 3, 1 to the 13th to do a total of 3, and 3 remaining on June 20. And that would allow us to meet or conduct the hearings, if you will, on all 9 in those 3 evenings. And that would be my hope that we could do that. We're scheduling them for 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and 8 p.m. Obviously, I know you all appreciate, we have no way of predicting if it will be a 10-minute hearing or a 90-minute hearing on each one. We obviously will have to be flexible and address that as things come forward, but the proponents are required to provide 14 days' notice. So we have to make that decision this evening in order to allow the town manager and his team to notify the first 2 groups, of course, because they're coming up pretty quickly. And then the third grouping has a little bit more time. So I'd like to try to follow that plan. If need be, we also talked about maybe putting something on the 27th, which is a night of a regular board meeting, but we could meet earlier than the start of our 7 p.m. meeting. But I'd like to try to reserve that in case we need it and schedule these 9 in the manner that I just described. It may make for a challenging couple of nights, but the only other alternative is it spills into, July, for example, and it's going to be harder and harder to get everybody together. So I'm hopeful we can all, we've already committed to the dates, but we can hopefully spend a little bit extra time and accomplish 9 hearings in those 3 evenings. So does that meet with everybody's approval?
I think that's worth the risk.
Okay, so we will do that. I'll ask the town manager to schedule a third one on the 12th, a third one on the 13th, and that leaves 3 remaining that will get scheduled on June 20. And we will take it from there. Everyone at this point either has access to or has in their possession the license applications for all of the proposers. There was one delivered, I think, are available this week. The copies were made, and if you haven't got it, it's upstairs. Otherwise, we all have them at this point. Okay?
To that point, Mr. Chairman, as somebody got up and spoke today, one of the proponents, I have heard a couple of people asking if we're going to hear all of them, or is it the first come, first serve, that kind of questions that are going on in the community. I'm not asking the other select board members to make a decision, but it's my intention to listen to all of them before I make a decision. I want to hear all, I mean, with any good business, you want to hear everybody's proposal. And I want to hear all of them before I make a decision on what's best for this community. So there's a little rumblings of, somebody got to go first or somebody it is. That's not the case. We are up front, we're open, we're very, the people that are going to be selected, we're going by, the applications received. But it's my thing to listen to every one of them before making the decision, all of them. The other board members, you can do what you want, but I think that, my thing is, I think that's our intention.
I think it's
We
only,
may not have clarified that, but I just want to make that,
it's only fair to the applicants.
I think so. I concur with Mr. Kratman, and I was going to ask that we, at our May 27th meeting, kind of confirm that as a board, like that's our policy, effectively. Anybody listening to this conversation can kind of hear that, but to put that out formally, just to say, we're going to listen to everything. And then we'll, and we could have some discussion at that point, but we don't have to. We can listen to all of them and then schedule another date to decide how we want to assess them and award them.
That's the intention in my mind of the process, is to have a discussion around next steps, right? It's not, right now, the challenge is to get the hearings scheduled and conduct the hearings, and that is the next phase, and then the deliberation or decision-making process is something we haven't got to yet.
Yes.
Right? And I want to stress for the public's benefit, this is the first time we're doing this. So it might be a little clunky, or it might seem like it's a little clunky, but be assured that the process is being managed in accord with the statutes that are applicable, and the board has a level of discretion on how it wants to conduct its business. And people are free to disagree or question it, but that's why there are 5 people sitting at this table. Someone has to make those decisions, and the 5 people here were entrusted to do that. So it may not be perfect, it may not seem to be perfect in the eyes of some folks, but I know that the 5 people here will exercise their diligence and do what they believe is right. And I already spoke to the same topic a few minutes ago when I was asked the question. I think I heard 4 individuals here. We're missing, unfortunately, one of our colleagues, but it seems to me that there is at least consensus that we intend to hear all of them before any decisions get made. So whether that's a formal policy or the intent of each of us as individuals, I think the roadmap has effectively been clear here. And, things could change, quite frankly. I don't have a crystal ball, but the first 3 might blow us away. And we might say, guess what? We love them. I have no idea. But I'm going into it with the intention of looking at all of them first, to your point, Mr. Crabbe. So,
And I like it, Chairman, I like the policy of having the 3 on the first night. I think after having discussions, we discussed that having more than 3 would be, we don't know what we're getting into. We don't know if this could be a, like I said, a 20-minute meeting, or it could be an hour meeting, and I'm expecting that maybe some residents or business owners or other people may want to have their input, especially on the first meeting. So if we have that first meeting, we can adjust from there. But, I think that's the best policy to go forward. So I appreciate you putting that forward.
Okay, all right. So that's all I have for board member reports. So our next meeting is June 6th. And that will be set up, I guess it's 3 weeks from tonight, if I have that right. And then we'll meet again, as I just indicated, on the 12th and the 13th. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I have one wrinkle for you.
Yes.
We do often board appointments, like committee appointments in June, and we're pretty saturated with stuff in June. I do need one person, I need some people appointed to committee, and the school committee has appointed somebody as a designee to a committee. So I want to put that on the next possible agenda, and I'll do that under
Yep.
separate cover, but
Yep.
it's something to think about.
We're
It's
going
a
to
long
try to
night.
stick with our process in June of working through, during our regular board meetings, the appointments. And our hope is most folks want to remain on the various committees that they're on, so that will be, hopefully make life a little easier. But we'll ask, I know Mr. Montori and his crack staff are actually working on that as we speak.
Yeah, we'll have something ready for June 6th, so.
Okay.
If Selectman Wellman has
Yeah.
Select Board Member Wellman has something for them, then we'll incorporate it.
Yeah, so if you have an appointment that needs to be made, get that to the town manager's staff and myself, and we can get it
Will
on the
do.
agenda, okay?
Will do. All right.
But our intention is to try to do that, because we don't want to belabor the process.
Exactly.
Okay? So June might be a little busy for us, but we'll get into July and August. We'll take the usual longer break between meetings, and we can hopefully get through the month of June and take a little breath. So, okay, so can I ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting at, 8:50?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now adjourned. Thank you and good night.